Anyway, we can't meet the King today, but we can meet someone who may be Conservative leader in just a few weeks. That's as the candidates Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch battled it out last night at that special GB News event.
Yes, they clashed on a wide range of issues, including Britain's membership of the European Convention on Human Rights, illegal migration and culture wars.
Yes, but Kemi Badenoch did take aim at Robert Jenrick's media appearances.
I don't just go on media just for the sake of going on media. I go on media when I have something to say. That is how we run things. I don't believe anyone thinks that I am scared of scrutiny. I had it every day as a Member of Parliament and as a Minister.
Us live in the studio now is Robert Jenrick. Good to see you this morning, Robert.
Good morning, it's good to be here.
Let's start.
And I do enjoy going on your programme.
And you did, because we spoke to you last week, didn't we? We're speaking to you again today.
Did.
You've been very open in speaking to the media. Kemi Badenoch, well, not pulling her punches yesterday, saying that she only goes on the media when she's got something to say. What do you think of that?
I believe this is an important job. I am not just auditioning to be the leader of the opposition. I want to be the next Prime Minister of this country. I think that I should put myself on your programme. I should be held accountable. I think what we saw last night was a great debate, but I want to see head-to-head debates. Why wouldn't we do that? You know, Kemi and I should be properly scrutinised for this job. Otherwise, we're letting down the membership of this party and ultimately the public.
Why wasn't it a head-to-head debate last night? Did she not want to do it?
Well, as I understand it, she hasn't been willing to do head-to-head debates. There have been proposals to them with The Sun, with the BBC, with Sky. They haven't gone ahead. Let's do one. Let's do one next week, and then the public can see the actual policies being debated, because that's what really matters here, isn't it? Does the Conservative Party want to win the next general election? I wanted you. I don't want to just be in opposition for 10 years. We can't consign this party and this country to 10 years of Labour government.
In terms of those policies, I mean, obviously your key policy would seem to be the ECHR, because it's a block to the immigration problem, as you see it, that we have in this country. It was quite an interesting response from Kemi Badenoch last night when she said, well, actually, I think that's a weakness because I think we need to avoid this as an issue and until we've consolidated our view, in effect. I just wonder if consolidating the view is ever going to happen.
Well, look, I think there's a clear choice here, isn't there? Do you want a plan today or the promise of one tomorrow? And I don't think any leadership contender is worthy of your vote if they can't stand in front of you now and say, where do they stand? Because it's a simple choice. Do you want to remain within the ECHR and continue to have foreign criminals on our streets, terrorists who we can't remove, and borders which are not secure? Or do you want to leave and end this farce once and for all? I'm for leave. And members of the party, and frankly the general public, know with me that I can be trusted on this issue. I resigned from Cabinet because I felt so strongly on it. If I am elected leader of this party, we'll have a very clear position. And that, frankly, that's the only way in which we'll get the votes back who went to Reform. You know, 4 million of our voters went to Reform because they were so angry and frustrated at us on this very issue, securing our borders. And if we don't get them back, we will be in opposition for years to come. So the ultimate choice is opposition or government. I want to take us back into government.
Is that why you've suddenly swung to the right, as many would say, in order to get those voters who defected to Reform back over immigration? Because there are people who are suspicious of your lurch to the right, as they would see it. You were a Remainer, famously. You're a moderate Tory, as many would say, and there's reports in some of the papers that you quietly told your colleagues that if you were elected party leader, you would pivot the party back to the centre.
No, look, my values have never changed. My values are rooted in my upbringing. The town I grew up in, Wolverhampton, they are about the nation state, their family, their small business, free enterprise, patriotism. Those are my values. But it's certainly true that my experience at the Home Office taught me that we will never secure our borders and keep the British people safe unless we do what I'm proposing, a cap on legal migration and leaving the ECHR. And there's a choice for the party's members. Do you want to speak in platitudes or do you want to have policies? Do you want to have a path to get back into government or do you want to remain in opposition? I know where I stand on those things.
I'm quite intrigued by. I mean, I know it's a job for the opposition at the moment. However, the idea of saying, well, you get back into government, you'd leave the ECHR, you'd sort all this out. You know better than the rest of us that the Home Office is a nightmare. it's not fit for purpose. It hasn't been for a long time. And actually reforming what the Home Office does and how it operates is a mammoth task. Could you do it?
Well, I've said in the past that we should abolish the Home Office. I think we should set up a proper borders department staffed by people who are determined to fix this problem, who are not just interested in providing support to those who come to this country, but want to secure our borders. But I think it's an excuse to say, oh, it's all the civil service. Look, we are ultimately in charge. We are the politicians. You want to elect leaders who will drive this country in the right direction. And that's why I say, end the drama, end these excuses, and just deliver for the people of this country. And that requires a proper path, the policies that will persuade a deeply sceptical public that we are serious on these issues. The public know how strongly I feel about this. They now see that I have very clear answers to these problems. The alternative, my opponent has no plan at all. It's the promise of a plan tomorrow. That is a recipe for more infighting within the Tory party and more loss of public trust.
I mean, unity has got to be the number one priority for whoever wins this leadership election, because the party is in absolute disarray. Do you have a clear vision of what is the Tory party? Who is the Tory party? What does it even stand for anymore? Only 121 MPs left. I mean, unity has got to be the most important thing to whoever wins this.
It has. Look, we've got to get the Conservative family back together. And that doesn't just mean uniting the 121 Conservative MPs, important though that is. It means getting back all small C Conservatives, people who watch your programme. Some will have voted Conservative this election. Some will have voted Reform. Some won't have voted at all. Some will have voted for Labour, the Liberals. I want to get all small C Conservatives back into our family. That is my task. And I think you do that by having a very clear set of policies which sets out where do we stand on the big issues facing our country, not just talking in empty platitudes, and ending this drama, the chaos that we've seen in recent years, and delivering for the British people.
I wonder if that's the dividing line between you two, because we've got to try and find one, really. The idea that, and maybe she'll correct me if I'm getting Mrs. Badenoch's position wrong, but it sounds like she wants to consolidate the party and then find a direction to go in, whereas you seem to be saying, I am going to lead and people will follow.
Yeah, well, there are obvious dividing lines. I want to cap legal migration. My opponent won't say that. I want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. She doesn't want to do that, or won't say so today. So it's a promise of a plan tomorrow versus an actual plan today. But the point you're making, I think, is right. But where we differ is I don't think the Conservative Party has time. You've seen in 100 days the damage this Labour government has made. I don't want to wait 10 years in opposition. And you've got Reform snapping at our heels. They're not going anywhere. If anything, they're consolidating, they're rising. If the Conservative Party wants to exist in a few years' time, let alone win the next election, it's got to get serious on these issues, in particular on immigration, because that's the principal reason, not the only one. That's why I also talk about the NHS and the economy. But it's the principal reason why we lost so much faith from the British people at this election. So unless we get serious, we're consigning this party to years in opposition and a very uncertain future. I'm not prepared to do that.
Unless you fall down the trap that obviously Rishi Sunak did of promising the earth but not actually delivering it.
Well, that's why I think you have to make these difficult choices. You can't say you're going to secure our borders and not say you're going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. It's just not possible. The European Convention on Human Rights prevents us from getting those terrorists, those foreign criminals, out of our country, from securing our borders. We've seen time and again examples of it. Think of that Ugandan man the other day who had murdered somebody in the back of a taxi in London, and then we couldn't get him out of this country back to Uganda because, citing the ECHR, a British court said Uganda wouldn't protect his mental health. That is one example of many. So if you want to be serious on this issue, the inevitable answer is to leave the ECHR. That's why I feel strongly about this. Some people, not on GB News, thankfully, but some in the Westminster media say, why do I bang on about immigration? Well, because this is so important to people in this country and because it's so critical to the future of the Conservative Party. If we get the choice wrong in the next few days, we are consigning the party to years in the political wilderness.
If you win this leadership race, do you think you could survive 5 years, considering the infighting, considering the chaos that we've been talking about, considering the momentum behind reform at the moment? Could you survive 5 years? Could you potentially become Prime Minister?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I'll unite the Conservative Party. I've worked with people on all sides, but I'll unite it around a very clear set of principles and policies. And that's the key thing here, because it's with those policies that we're going to take the fight to reform. We're going to bring those people back home to us. I'm not going to denigrate reform, but I do want to put them out of business and bring those natural small C Conservatives back to us. If that doesn't happen, because we make the wrong choice in the next few weeks, then I think reform are going to continue to rise. The Conservative Party's position will weaken, and we will be in opposition for years. I'm not just applying to be leader of the opposition, let alone a temporary one, as you suggest. I want to be the next Prime Minister of this country, and that is the choice. Do you want a leader of the opposition, shouting at Keir Starmer at the dispatch box, but ultimately going nowhere? Or do you want the next Prime Minister of this country who can get the Conservatives back into government and take this country in a Conservative direction again?
You talk a good fight, right? And a lot of people will agree with you. However, I mean, you've only got to look at what the bets of the odds are, and it's on Kemi Badenoch. The studio audience last night in a show of hands were for Kemi Badenoch. Why do you think your message doesn't seem to be necessarily cutting through with Conservative Party members?
Well, I totally disagree. If you had asked what the chances of me being sat in the studio were as one of the final 2, 3, 4 months ago, it was 66 to 1. No one was putting bets on that. I've since come through the middle. All these other people who were far better known than me have fallen by the wayside. This is neck and neck. The only reliable poll that was conducted a few weeks ago by YouGov said it was within the margin of error. I think the momentum is with me. Yes, the studio audience last night was a very London-centric one. But look, I think that people across the country are listening and my message is resonating. What I want the Conservative Party membership to do is to focus on the big choice here. Do you want to win the next election? And the polling on that shows, every single poll confirms this. If you want to win, I am the best placed candidate to do that. There was an MRP poll out just a couple of days ago which said that if I was leader and there was a general election tomorrow, before I even got started, we would be in a hung parliament, whilst under my opponent, Keir Starmer would still be Prime Minister with a clear majority. That's the choice. Win or stay in opposition. I want this party to win.
Okay. Interesting.
Robert Jenrick.
Jenrick, really good to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.